Hello and welcome to the 19th Amendment Commemorative Webinar Series presented by the League of Women Voters of Johnson County, the University of Iowa Pentacrest Museums, and the Center for Public Policy at the University of Iowa. My name is Carolina Kaufman, and I'm the Director of Education and Engagement at the University of Iowa's Pentacrest Museums. I hope you enjoyed the digital slideshow we just presented of the Old Capitol Museum's 19th Amendment exhibit, Hard Won Not Done, A Century Struggle. You can explore the entire exhibit online on the Pentacrest Museum's exhibits website page on the link that's both on the screen, and we will provide it also in the chat in a few moments. Within this link, you'll see all of our virtual exhibits and find access to Hard Won Not Done and explore and discover this fascinating history. As a reminder to audiences, today's program is being live streamed on the League of Women Voters Facebook page, and City Channel 4 is recording the discussion for the rebroadcast. We are muting your microphone during the presentation. Now, I want to introduce you to our moderator for today's program, Erin Jordan from the Gazette. She's an investigative journalist and host of the newspaper's Pints and Politics series. Today, Ms. Jordan will serve as a moderator of the panel discussion, New Waves or No More Waves, Old Capitol Roundtable. I now turn over the program to Erin Jordan. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much, Carolina. It's a pleasure to be with you today for this important discussion that highlights where women are now by redefining present-day suffrage and barriers women experience to achieve electoral and professional success. So we encourage viewers today to type questions into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to work as many of those into our discussion here as the time allows. So here to participate in our conversation today are women representing our area. Please welcome Raquishia Harrington, North Liberty City Council Member, Huynh, Coralville City Council Member, Angie Jordan, South District Neighborhood Representative, and Noel Mills, Graduate Assistant in the University of Iowa Office of Community Engagement and former U of I Student Government President. Welcome. Before we begin the program, we'd like to thank the Pentacrest Museum staff who are co-hosting the event behind the scenes, the University of Iowa Public Policy Center, and our media sponsors, Iowa City Channel 4, and my employer, the Gazette. So let's begin our program. I'm going to start by asking each panelist to take a few minutes to tell us a little bit about her career path and barriers that she may have experienced along the way. If you could tell us how you overcame these challenges or provide any advice to listeners, that's a bonus. That's great too. So let's start with Raquishia.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this panelist with these fabulous women here. This is so awesome. But my name is Raquishia Harrington. I am an Iowa native. I grew up in Waterloo, Iowa. I am a mother to 3 wonderful children and a wife to my high school sweetheart. We have been living in North Liberty, Iowa for 13 years now. And that's where we have been raising our family. I came to the University of Iowa to pursue further my education and graduated from the University of Iowa a long time ago. And now my oldest child is also a graduate too. So we have 2 alumnus in our home. Along with that, I also am a program supervisor for the City of Iowa City and the Parks and Recreation Department. My journey and path to get into both serving on the North Liberty City Council and serving for the City of Iowa City Parks and Recreation came through a path of working in nonprofit and being connected to the community and being passionate about the things that I held very close to my heart, knowing that being an advocate and working with young people and working with young families. I was a young mother myself, so working through those challenges and overcoming any of those barriers kind of set me on a path and a trajectory to want to give back and be a voice and advocate for those who probably had similar situations or were in in other situations where they felt like they did not have a voice. So that has carried me through everything that I have done, to be passionate about it and to be a connector, um, and network and provide opportunities and spaces for people to be their authentic selves. Sometimes when you don't see people that represent you in positions or areas, you often feel that you're not able to do that, but it takes a little bit of encouragement. Again, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have the support of people in the community or even my family members to say, you know what, you may have come up against this challenge, but you still can succeed and be successful through determination, hard work, and of course, just believing in yourself. So I think one of the biggest obstacles is yourself and having to remove your own doubts and uncertainties. And I know that I would not have been able to do any of that without people who stood in my corner, without examples that I had with leaders or people that I found to be motivating or so powerful that I knew that everything that they wanted to do wasn't like easy peasy and it didn't happen overnight, but they had to work through some challenges. They had to navigate through some things and they had plenty of failures along the way. And I'm not, I'm not without those failures or still with challenges to this day. And I also know that every day is an opportunity to learn more, to be introduced to new things, to be able to think outside of the box, and an opportunity to connect to more people, or you just never know what your story or your journey can do to impact other people's lives. And I live by that every day, knowing that if I hold in my story or, my path, it could also prevent someone else from stepping out and doing something. And so I want to not only be a great role model for my children and my family, but I know that there are other people that look at me and want to do a lot of things. And I'm very transparent and I will tell them that it's not easy and it's a lot of work, but when you have the right people around you or the supports or the mechanisms there, that you, or even when you don't know the answers, to just ask, because there's always someone there cheering you on or wanting you to be just as successful. So that's a little bit about me. Also, I have a ton of brothers, like all brothers. So I had to do what I needed to do so they wouldn't like overshadow me and forget about me while I was growing up. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Hi, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Erin. Hello, everybody. My name is Huynh, and I am a council member of the city of Coralville. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And a special thank to the League of Women Voters of Johnson County, the University of Iowa Pentacrest Museum, and the University of Iowa Public Policy Center for hosting today's event. A little bit about me. I am an immigrant. I came here to the US with my family from Vietnam when I was 16 years old. We came here with nothing, and we actually settled in Maine for 2 years. And when an opportunity come up here in Iowa for my dad to get a better paying job so that he can provide better for the family, he took the chance and hopped on the bus and came down here to Mount Pleasant, actually, which is an hour south from here, and check it out. So he spent a week staying at a friend's house and got a job at a mail sorting facility. And after a week, he earned his first paycheck, and he, go to a payphone. He called up to my mom and he said, it's pretty good here. The weather is milder. It's right next to a private college, and it's great. And actually, the Asian community is a little bit bigger than where we are currently at in Maine. And so my mom packed all of us up on the bus, Greyhound bus, and we traveled to Mount Pleasant. and we settled down there. I went up to the University of Iowa to go to college in the fall of 1997. And after graduating from college, we chose to stay here, and we actually moved to Coralville. And when I say we, it's my current husband and I. So we chose to move to Coralville and call Coralville home. And since moving to Coralville after college, we haven't left. We made Coralville our home away from home, and we have lived here for over 20 years, and we love this community. We have 4 children, one in each school level, so high school, middle school, and elementary school. So I am sympathetic to all of the parents out there who have children in all levels of schooling, dealing with the challenge of a pandemic that have brought upon all of us. And I have always been a curious, love to get involved person in my community. If there is a place where people are looking for help, I would be the first person to show up. And oftentimes my children would be right along with me. And we were everywhere. And I loved it. I love every minute of it, because volunteering in my community not only give me the satisfaction of lending a helping hand and helping my neighbor to make my community better, but it's also give me the opportunity to learn about other people, other culture, and in turn, I better myself at it, and the relationship, making friends, it was great, and I thought that was enough and that was fulfilling. But sometimes when you do something so often, it's become a routine, and you don't you just do it, and you don't even think about what that could have done to someone else, or how that had an impact on your own community. And it's by chance when the opportunity arises to actually run for office. I've never thought about that before that opportunity arises. I never actually thought about politics in the way that it's had a direct impact in the local level, and colleague, friends, even family encouraged me and said, you know what, this is a wonderful opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to serve your community in a way that you have never served before, and maybe it's an opportunity to for you to elevate the voices that haven't been heard at the discussion table and at the decision making table, for a long time. So go for it, and you never know. And I have to be honest, I did not want to. I did not want to, just because at that time in my life, I have so many responsibility as a partner, a mother. I just got a job because all of my children are now in school, so I can actually go and contribute into the workforce in my community. And I said, gosh, where do I find the time? And if I was to commit to this, who will suffer? What am I going to take away from my family, from my colleague who I work with in my job, from the relationship that I had committed to? I wasn't sure if I have what it takes to take on more responsibility. And my family and my colleague and friends said that everybody will support you, so just go for it. And so I did. I did, and I was very nervous, and I didn't think that I was qualified to be honest. I didn't think I was qualified for the job. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges going into this, was that I was afraid that my qualification wasn't enough for the job. And therefore, I won't be able to do a good job, be as effective as I would like to be. And then also the feeling of being, acceptable. Am I acceptable in my community because of the way that I look? Are they going to accept me to represent them? That was the biggest challenge for me, is feeling acceptable, feeling that I'm good enough to serve my community in this way. And because English is not my first language, so it have always been a something that I'm very self-aware of, and also something that oftentimes make me shy away from anything that have to involve the general public. Like now, I always kind of have to double check and triple check what I want to say to make sure that I communicate my point effectively and clearly. And I said, you know what, I don't know if I have the language that is required in order to understand the complexity that the issue present. Because communication is a big key in order to to govern effectively. And being a person of color, to be honest, I didn't really want to draw attention to myself more than I already draw attention to myself, whether I wanted to or not. And Raquishia probably can relate to that. And it just, we don't know where is a safe place for us and where it's not. And it is very tiring to have to always be hyper vigilant, everywhere we go. And especially since all the racial, injustice has been rising in our community and also all around the country. It's definitely something that BIPOC have to think every day. We wake up and we think about how we dress, how we should talk, how we look, so that we don't offend the next person that we run into and bring trouble into our lives. And it's unfair and it's very tiring, but is this the life that BIPOC have to live here? And I recognize that, and because I have children, I also want to protect them, because sometimes they don't know, and so I want to protect them, not because I'm afraid that they won't be able to fend for themselves, but I want to protect them so that they are not harmed, because sometimes I'm not always there to protect them, and so I want to give them the tool to be able to protect themselves when I'm not there with them. And also fear of failure, that is the biggest fear, because you put yourself out there, and when you do things that doesn't involve a lot of people, it's okay to fail sometime, and people kind of give you a pat on your back and say, oh, it's okay, you have a next chance, But when you are in public service, especially, like out in the public eye, it doesn't matter what you do. Sometimes not everybody is going to happy. You are going to make someone unhappy. And that is a balance that we have to find as public servant in order to, to kind of balance out that. And, having said all of that, I did take the plunge, and if I have to do it all over again, I would, because this offered me an opportunity that not everybody would have. And it's also, give me a chance to teach my kid and show my family that, you have to follow through with what you teach, because I teach them to always be, always walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And I often tell them to seize the opportunity. And if I don't see the opportunity that present to me because of fear and because of whatever else, then I'm really not practicing what I preach. And growing up in my culture, we don't pass up an opportunity. And I'm the product of that. And it's also really hard for me to say no. If you ask me about something and I think that I can fulfill it, I often said yes, even if my plate is overflowing. So again, thank you so much for having me here. It is an honor to be among all of the panelists, and I can't wait to have more discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi. Angie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Erin, I'm just going to check in. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, just check in. Yeah, I just also want to express gratitude for being here today and with these women and all the folks that are here. So thanks for everyone who put it together. My name is Angie Jordan. I am a South District resident in Iowa City. I'm also the president of our South District Neighborhood Association. But I'm so much more than that. I am an Iowa City native, born at Mercy Hospital back on Super Bowl Sunday, 1986. Grew up here until I was about 8, went to Horace Mann Elementary School. And then when I was 8, my mother and older sister and I moved down to South Texas. I am a quarter Latinx. So I grew up amongst my Latino roots, a lot of Spanish and Tex-Mex. My abuelita came and lived with us and then lived nearby us. So a lot of my upbringing, though I came back every summer to Iowa City and hung out with my dad and my step family. I love summers in Iowa City, which is part of why I moved back. But I grew up with women, lots of very strong women, women that were in charge. In fact, I think part of when I became in my early 20s, I was a little sexist, thinking men can't do anything, because I hadn't seen a lot of that. But I grew up in Southern Texas. And when I went to college, I went to this itty bitty liberal arts school way out in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and was extremely isolated, but got an incredible education. Williams has a huge endowment, and at times I felt like I was imported, but I took advantage of that because I'm like, we got to take advantage of those opportunities. It was out there on the East Coast that I learned I was also Black. There were summers where we'd spend with my grandparents, my father's parents in Texas, northern Texas, and we'd be in Wichita Falls, which is kind of near Oklahoma, predominantly Black, and I was a kid. But out there, I understood on the East Coast around a lot of wealthy upper echelon, predominantly white folk, that they saw me as Black. It didn't matter that I could speak some Spanish and I identified with my Latinx roots. It didn't matter that I actually self-identified as mixed. It didn't matter because people made a judgment and an assumption. And that actually helped me because they were so wrong. It gave me their preconceived notions. They didn't see me coming from other directions. So a lot of that was because I'm second born and I'm a little sister who knows how to pick and pry and annoy. I also did a ton of sports and a lot of theater growing up, which for those of you who do those things know it's a very team-oriented thing. You have a role. You will get good at it, and then you will do it when you need to do it. If it's not getting done, you will go practice until you figure it out. So that was really enmeshed in my kind of psyche growing up. I decided to move back to Iowa City because it was a safe place for me. Again, I had such great fond memories of the summers here in Iowa City with my sister and my father. My mother would eventually move back here, so a lot of family that ended up coming here. A great place that has opportunity. I started a mentoring program for kids who had parents in prison, predominantly the teenagers, usually the male teenagers that a lot of folks, for whatever reason, either forgot about, didn't know they existed, didn't want to engage them. They were this very invisible population. And I was excited to show them how amazing Iowa City was. And I learned a lot about certain parts of Iowa City I didn't realize weren't so amazing. I also learned a ton about folks coming from different parts of the country to Iowa City and their experiences, and not just, oh, let's get you on a basketball team or let's get you a fun mentor. No, let's figure out what's housing going to be for you. Do you need glasses so that you can actually see at school? So really getting an opportunity to engage families at a very intimate level, which led me to neighborhood centers of Johnson County work, where I was a family support advocate. Keisha was my mentor. I see you, Keisha. But really seeing that these children are a part of a family unit, and that family unit is a part of a neighborhood, and that neighborhood, and so on and so forth. As I felt like I was getting the hang of things, I decided I'm going to have some kids of my own. My partner, he's about 20 years with the fire department, and he and I started having kids, and I realized I could not do all the things. No matter what people told me, you can do it all. I personally could not. So I wanted to stay at home and use my cognitive psych degree and my anthropology in these little forming brains, these little babies. And so I spent about 7 years as a stay-at-home parent. We lived in North Liberty at the time. As the kids got older and they were going to go into school, both of my kids are in elementary school, we moved on purpose to the South District from North Liberty off of Broadway Street so that our children could go to Grant Wood Elementary School and grow up in a neighborhood where they were not in the minority, that they saw people that looked like them. And one thing turns into another thing, and we ended up getting rezoned for Alexander Elementary School, a brand new school. I don't know anybody there. I had my own preconceived notions. I decided, you know what? The best thing to do is to become the president of the PTO and have a knitting group. That way I can keep an eye on those teachers. And I love Alexander. I love being able to be in there as a parent and be helpful. I love working with the kids in a volunteer level. And so helping to build traditions within the education setting. My mom and some of my stepmoms, they're also educators. I love school. I was lucky. I was good at school, so it was a happy place for me. I know that's not true for everybody. So as the kind of getting my feeling like a part of this neighborhood, helping to build traditions at the school, I recognize again, this is connected to our neighborhood. People have some opinions about our neighborhood, and really seeing that as well. Why don't we have more lighting? Why do the police show up with those long guns whenever? How come that neighbor is that? Why aren't the parks nice? Starting to ask questions and have that same curiosity others panelists have talked about really led me towards neighborhood. I'll call it work, but this is purely volunteer residential stuff that I do. And feeling like when you ask those questions and people give you the answers or don't give you the answers, it just keeps leading you down that rabbit hole. That now we have a nonprofit neighborhood association. That's not there. I think there's only one other nonprofit neighborhood association in Iowa City. It kind of spirals into this space where my challenge to self was, I can't do it all. I don't want to do it all. I shouldn't be doing it all. How do I help to engage folks who are like me, who maybe don't have the connections quite yet, maybe don't believe that those dreams and aspirations that they've been holding on to or keeping in their pockets, they can be real. How do I engage them at an organic, I'm your neighbor level? My kids have a play date with you. Let's talk about how you want to have a business. Or did you know that there's this resource down the street to help with lights? So just I love engaging people in general, but connecting, making those organic, very, very integrated connections on the base level. I didn't realize people weren't connected to this awesome Iowa City that I love. I didn't realize some parts of Iowa City had no desire or no knowledge, or were trying really hard but just weren't getting what they needed. That those disconnects existed at such a level. So I got more involved in neighborhood association things so that I could help be that connector, like Keisha was saying, and really serve. And I think it's one of those things for me. I love the uncomfortable. I love the gray space. I think that's where curiosity exists and we can be together, uncomfortably together. And so creating those spaces and engaging those spaces, but keeping those spaces so that they always exist, so that they're consistently available for us to go into, move in and out of. That's part of part of why I stay in this work, because I've seen way too many times good ideas happen and then, oh, good job, you're done. Or good ideas don't happen. No, we need spaces all the time for those ideas to come together and bring people together to support each other, so that we can always be doing this. Because again, I love Iowa City. And with that, I'm gonna pause so the other panelists have some time too.
Thank you, Angie. Well, last, let's go to Noel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Noel Mills. I am also from Waterloo. I graduated from Waterloo West High School. I came to the University of Iowa in fall of 2016, just for an affordable education, and got an email about this thing called student government and was very intrigued. And so just wanted to get involved, never really saw myself ever as being student body president, but I joined and I loved it and I was good at it and I loved the people that I was working with. And as the years went on, it became more and more apparent that it was almost expected that I was to be running. But of course, there's lots of self-doubt that come into that because I think as women, we're trained to be team players and we're trained to not necessarily take the role that we want, but the role that needs to be filled and the role that you would be good at. And so I kind of thought to myself, I'll just be the director of finance again. Like, I'm good at that. I can serve the organization that way. And on top of all that, I knew too that the person I would be running against, if I were to run for student body president, was another woman. And that adds a whole layer of, well, I want her to be successful and I want her to get the position she wants. But at the end of the day, it came down to the fact that it would be a disservice really to both of us if I was to not jump in the race and create a competitive race and give both of us that opportunity to have a competitive election. And so even on top of all that, I was still so scared. I had so much self-doubt. And really the tipping point for me was the person who was student body president when I was considering all of this was also my good friend. And we got froyo and she sat me down and she was like, "You're running. What can I do to support you?" Like, no, there's no question. This is happening. And hearing that from her and having her as a mentor and a friend telling me not just that I could do it, but that like she was going to help me every step of the way and be a mentor and continue to support me. That's what really tips me over the edge. And I decided just hearing from her that I could do it, that I could do it. And so I ran and it was really scary and it was really hard. And I think as women, we're trained to be we want to please everyone and we never want to, make any waves or say how we feel if we think someone's going to disagree with us. But at the end of the day, you have to decide what you stand for and you have to continue standing for those things, especially when you're the person who has the seat at the table and you're the person who was chosen to fight for every student at the University of Iowa. And so you kind of have to put aside your self-doubt and put aside your fears and take on that responsibility because you have the privilege of doing so. And through my 4 years in student government, I realized that politics was something that I was particularly interested in and could be good at. So I am doing the Master of Public Affairs at the University of Iowa. This is the first year. And if anyone here is listening is considering a master's, definitely consider the University of Iowa Public Affairs program. But to wrap it all up, Erin, you asked about any advice we have. My advice is not to just be brave enough to run for public office, but also to look around you and see if there's any women or people of color in your life who you think would be good in a public office position and encourage them to run, because that can make the world of the difference for them, because I know it did for me.
That's great advice. I'm thinking about people right now as you say that. So, so hearing you guys talk about your career paths and your paths to elected office is just so inspiring. I wanted to just open it up before we have some other questions from the league and maybe listeners. But among the panel, did any of the comments from other panelists make you have a follow-up question?
I don't necessarily have a question. I just want to add on to what a lot of them kind of said about things that we carry and how we move through life. Like some of us are parents and we're navigating that, and we're also sacrificing the things that we have going on, or our personal inside things, when people presume that you're just so strong because each one of us said, hey, we like helping people. You call us, we there, we jumping on it. But not knowing that sometimes we're there to help, and it carries that extra burden for us. And so it's important to have other women or other people in your corner to help support you. And it's okay when you can't do it. Like, we're not supposed to be out here pretending like we're super women or strong, or we don't have any breaking points, because we do, and we don't have the answers to everything. But I think Noel touched on it, saying that, you know, we have our own self doubts about things, and some of us are reluctant to go into these places, but other people see your potential. They see what you're fully capable of. And sometimes we get set in or stuck in our little silos of things, or our niche that we feel that we're like so good at, but not understanding how it's just as impactful to be in a position of being uncomfortable, as Angie said, because we get to be transparent, we get to be real, and we get to bring to the table issues and topics that often go unsaid and unnoticed, because we're supposed to put on this like tough exterior, or this superwoman exterior, like everything is okay. And there's plenty of days that I seriously want to run and cry, because it's like, you can't save the world, you can't, and you're trying to hold up this much on this plate, and everything else over here is falling or crumbling. Or as a parent, you know, going through this pandemic, knowing that mental health is concerning, and you thinking that you're the best person and best as engaged and involved, but it's like, I can't do this by myself. I have to reach out to other parents. I have to know where the resources are, how I can help my child, but also help the friends that, you know, they've acquired throughout their school year, and just to uplift them. So there's a lot of uncertainty within our journeys, but there's a lot of passion behind it that drives us and makes us like be able to conquer some of the highest mountains and scariest, you know, situations, but we overcome it and we can talk about it, but we also can share. Like, platforms like this and opportunities like this, you can definitely share those experiences, but also encourage other people to step out of their comfort zone and do more, because we need so many more people to be able to be passionate and be honest about, you know, what they're experiencing and going through.
Thank you. Well, if there's no other questions from you guys, I'm getting some that are popping up from our listeners, so I want to launch into that. So, a record number of women are serving in the U.S. Congress this session. Iowa's 6 congressional members include 4 women. We have a female governor in Kim Reynolds, and the first woman as Vice President of the United States of America in Kamala Harris. So I wanted to ask you, and this is coming from some of our listeners, what's the next step? What do women want to do now?
I think women want to show that they have been capable of leading forever, and that it's time out for them sitting behind the scenes and watching, and this may sound horrible, but watch men basically put us in worse situations because their egos get in the way. And so that is what it is. I think women, especially BIPOC, Black women, have been there from the beginning as well. And so to see it actually play out in present day is just a testament to the struggle that all women have experienced, but that now they are having the opportunity to be not only at the table, but like at the head of the table, right? And they're making a ton of decisions to better our circumstances so that our children and their children can have better lives. So, Angie,
I just wanted to add to, I think in a lot of the work that I do, there's this constant urgency that fuels me. It's hard to come down from, but when are people gonna care? When are people gonna get involved? When is this gonna happen so I don't have to do so much? When, now. It's there. This is an opportunity that we have to find spaces, in my opinion, spaces that we're going to change our lives forever. We're going to give up that 2 hours every week to do X for the rest of our lives. And that's what we're going to do, so that not just one woman or two women have to do it all, but that we're all coming into it. And I'm one of those folks. I love throwing up all my ideas on people who actually say they're interested, so that, you know, I've been thinking about this. I've been having dreams. And I know there are lots of women out there who have concerns and questions and so much passion. Now is the time to step in and keep your foot in the door, because the more of us that are inside, the more we can actually get a stay, that it doesn't have to be a movement, that this is how it is now. So I just wanted to add that piece.
I also wanted to
that's a
say,
really good point.
oh, sorry, Erin. I also wanted to say that, you know, we as women, we are capable, just as capable as any man out there, sometimes better, because we multitask like no one else. And we are good at it. We are good at it. And if we set our mind to whatever the goal is, oftentimes we can attain that goal. But I think women need to stop being afraid of asking for help, because we are such good multitasker that sometimes we fail to ask for help because we said, oh, I can do that. And even if it's kill us, we will do it without asking for help. And so I think that is the key to having, more women to be able to excel in, public service, in professional life out there, in advocating for, other women. We need to ask for help, and we need to be better ally to each other. We need to uplift one another, and not be in battle with each other. Praise the next woman who make it, so that woman can praise the next one. And it's a domino effect, and it just kept going.
Yeah, just adding on, Erin, you mentioned that we have like a record number of women in Congress, and we have quite a few women in public office in Iowa. But it's ironic because, like, literally as we're speaking, we have our reproductive rights being questioned in Des Moines, and our right to vote how and when we choose being questioned, and our right to access affordable higher education is constantly being undermined. And so even though we have achieved all of these goals of moving towards gender and racial equity, we still have so much room to grow. And when we do achieve wins, those wins aren't guaranteed to continue to be wins. We need to continuously fight for them, because people are going to continuously try to take them away. And so I think, to Angie's point, we need to continue encouraging women to run for office, because the fight's never going to be over. Like, we're never going to always be guaranteed reproductive freedoms. We're never always going to be guaranteed racial equity. Like, we need to continue fighting for those things, and we need to continue making sure that we are always showing up and always running for office and always supporting other women, because if we don't, God forbid, what could happen.
Yeah, that's just a good point. It's more than just having that representation. It's what can we do to it, and what can we do with it, and how do we encourage others? So there have been many waves of change for women in America. The League of Women Voters kind of noted some of them, and some of this after the Civil War reconstruction. There's the Civil Rights Movement, of course, the 2016 presidential election. I know a lot of women cited that as a reason for getting into politics, the Me Too movement. It also seems like the Black Lives Matter movement is another wave. I wanted to ask panelists, how has this movement affected us already, and how will it continue to do so?
I'm just going to jump in. I think anytime anyone gives you a megaphone or a soapbox to stand on, you better take it. That does not mean there haven't been tons of us before a lot of this awareness has risen up. I'm so grateful that more people are waking up and coming to try to understand and educate themselves and to try to come together. But that has always been there. The pandemic's put a lot of folks on the same boat, but like they say, you know, it's not the same storm, or switch that around, however they say it. I just want to make sure that people that are becoming more aware of this, that's awesome and huge. People who've always been aware of it have been screaming and shouting for this since before I was born. So I don't want to minimize anything, but I do want to underline that I stand on the shoulders of many women. And we have to do, like Hi and Noel were talking about, and Keisha, we have to create a domino effect within our young ladies and our young men. We have to mentor them. We have to support them. We have to be there for them when they mess up and when they succeed. And I don't know that this totally answers the question, but I just really want to highlight that any movement or attention, we got to take advantage of it. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't already happening to some degree.
I also feel like it should not take a movement, you know, to have this kind of talk, to have this kind of domino effect. It should have always been a continuous working to achieve equality, you know, not only gender equality, but equality between all of the women, like of women too, because there are disparity in women, white women and women of color. We see huge disparity. And so we have to continue to carry the conversation. We should not wait until there is a movement to have the conversation. And most importantly, the conversation needs to happen at home. You know, that is very important, because if it doesn't start at home, and if we don't build that foundation and we start building upward, that building that we build will collapse very soon. And that is what we see with a lot of the movement out there that doesn't have a good base, you know, and so therefore movement after movement, and it feels like we are not moving forward.
I think this brings up a really interesting point about intersectionality in feminism. And I'm sure the panelists are already like well aware of this topic, because it has been kind of on the forefront recently. But just to dive in a little bit more, I feel like when I was growing up, feminism to me was always like the Lean In book and girl boss, and you know, this, that, and the other thing, where it was so focused on women who already have so much privilege, just taking that extra step. And when I got to college, I learned about how, you know, the struggles you face, like Hai was saying, as a white woman, are so vastly different than if you're Black or Indigenous or Asian American or whatever other type of woman or transgender woman or woman with disabilities. And so I think, like in our fight for gender equity, it can't just be about gender equity. It needs to be about what's best for all women, not just you. And if it's not good enough for women of color, if it's not good enough for women with disabilities, with transgender women, then it shouldn't be good enough for any of us.
I think the other panelists kind of, they already touched on it. And just to reiterate, the things that we are addressing, or the movements, they're not new. They just have a different name, a different title, and there's different spokespersons at the forefront of it, many of them being women of color. They're not behind the scenes, they're at the forefront, and their voices are being elevated, which is very important. The other thing is everything is kind of immediate, so it's at our fingertips to kind of see what's happening along the way, and you can do your research and you can connect to other people. You can be a part of movements and things that's being worked on behind the scenes all the time. Sitting right here in Iowa, we can be a part of things that's happening across the world for women in general, but just to better our communities on a day-to-day basis. and to know that there's so many just, I'm going to say, badass women behind the scenes that have been, as Angie say, knitting. They've been forming their knitting groups all along, and now we're seeing some of that final products that's being displayed to the world and to the community. And we do need more of that. We need to continue to raise up young leaders, young women of all colors, all races, all skill sets, and to be our next leaders, to change a lot of the policies and practices that have been in place that have stunted a lot of the movements and growth in areas that definitely need to be changed. And that's where we are now. And I am so excited to see what's to happen in the future, because we won't be able to say there's only 6. We may be saying there's only 6 men now, it's all women, so it could potentially change down the line. But I think we're taking ownership for things that have been important to us, and we sat around our tables, our kitchen tables, talking about it, or amongst our peers, and never really being heard, being silenced. But now we're there, and we have megaphones. Yes, we do.
So it takes a lot of work to get elected to office. Huynh, you talked about that. Others have hit on it a little bit. Anything from school board, city council to, Congress. And some people choose to stay in office for decades. Senator Chuck Grassley, others, but some may want to move on and do other things. You guys have talked a little bit about encouraging younger women. What's the pipeline like right now, particularly for women of color in Iowa?
I think right now is a prime time. I think Angie said it, it's right now. Right now you have an opportunity to be a part of anything and to be at the forefront. I too was afraid to, I love helping and I love doing things like that, but to be at the forefront and to be on council, that's intimidating when you don't know the ins and outs of things. Politics is just so convoluted as is. So it's very intimidating, but at the end of the day, it's not meant to say that you have to know everything. It's a forever and ongoing learning experience. And there's people who can definitely mentor you, because there are those lifers, those people who are like, this is my position and this is what I'm going to do forever. But you have the opportunity to share that and to learn what works in your community and what you're able to do. I started on the Parks and Rec commission for North Liberty before I even made it to city council. And my intentions wasn't to run for a city council either. I was okay with serving on the Parks and Rec commission because I knew the impact it was having there. I knew if I volunteered for other things, I still had an impact. But then you slowly realize that sometimes decisions are made about things that matter to people that you're constantly working with, that it is not really, that message is not really passed along about how that really is impacting those communities. And I knew that it had to be something different. And I can say that I've learned a lot about how municipalities work, how government works, and it's opened my eyes to a lot more things we need in our communities to help address institutional racism and so many other things across the board. But it also allows me to, again, encourage other young women or young people to get into politics or trying to make changes in their communities, whether they start in their school and serve on a committee or run for student body president or things like that, that they can start there. And navigate and work their way through it. It's not a one size fits all either.
Well, did anyone else want to add on to that? It might be our last comment we have time for. Go ahead, Angie.
Yeah, just building off of a few things Keisha was saying, and again, other panelists said this too, but folks that are younger or wanting to get involved, I just remember when I heard now Vice President Harris, when she was running for president, use the pronoun she. She as a president will da 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 da. And I remember getting goosebumps and feeling teary-eyed. I'm like, am I getting sick? And every time she talked about the president using that pronoun and recognizing, like what Huynh said, like this starts at home too. So when I talk to my daughter, and I know other folks bring their kids along to things, don't make sure you understand the ripple effect of having your young children, boys, girls, whatever their identification is, present at these conversations and understanding, because one day they're going to start being curious and they're going to ask more questions, and you're not going to have the answers, but you can connect them to other women or people of color, or building those networks so that when they're ready to go, you can plug them in and you can be there to support them. I think that mentoring piece is reciprocal too, right? We can learn from our youth as well. We can teach our youth, but we can learn from them as well. So I just kind of want to make a shout out to the young folks that are involved in things. Keep going, create space for discomfort to engage. And for folks who've been there forever, keep doing what you're doing and create more space to change and evolve as well, because we have to do this together. This is not going to be done by one person or 5 people. We have to continue to expand and grow. And do it in a sustainable way, which government's a good way to do that. Let's get in there.
That's great. I think just the time just has flown by here, but I do think we're kind of at the end of our time for today for our discussion. I want to thank each of our panelists and to Iowa City's City Channel 4 for live streaming and recording the panel. You can visit City Channel 4 to see a rebroadcast for viewing times, or to visit the League of Women Voters website or Facebook page to view it online. Thanks also to the program sponsors, the University of Iowa Pentacrest Museum, the U of I Public Policy Center, and the League of Women Voters, and the League's Centennial campaign sponsors. Just a couple of reminders of events that are coming up that be interested in. Some of our participants here, audiences can sign up for a March 10th event that will explore the intersectionality and honoring the women of color that were left out of some of these movements we've been passing. And I think Carolina put up a slide there that gets at that. I also, let me see, I need to go back to my screen here. There we go. And the Gazette also is hosting Pints and Politics tomorrow night at 5:30. That's online. It's online and free. You can join us there. We have our Gazette panelists and then Cassidy Arena from Iowa Public Radio. And the League of Women Voters of Johnson County will host legislative forums on Saturday, February 27th and March 27th, beginning at 9:30 in the morning. And those are also on City Channel 4. So I think that's about it. So again, just thank you so much to our panelists. I've written some notes here, just some takeaways for myself, and I bet others have done the same. So thank you to the panelists, and thank you for those of you who are watching. Have a great day.